Hey guys, welcome to my video. If it looks like I've been crying, well, I have been, because I just filmed this entire video once and realized I didn't record any of it. We're here to record it a second time! Alright, so in this video we're going to talk about how to draw anything in Procreate. Now, these tools and skills can be applied to other stuff, but I specifically wanted to show you some of the tricks and tips in Procreate when using this method, and sort of break it down step by step so that whatever it is you have floating around in that beautiful noggin of yours, you can get out on a canvas and really just let your imagination run wild. Let's go ahead and jump in. Now, when I say draw anything, I mean anything, and the way we do that is by breaking it down into simple shapes. Those shapes are a cylinder, a sphere, and a cube. You might be looking at me saying, Austin, that's insane. How can you draw all of these different things using just these objects? Well, to that I would say, I can't hear you. This is a YouTube video. But I'll answer the question anyways, because everything can be simplified. Everything can be simplified. And each of these three shapes can be altered to fit a wide variety of different forms and objects. Let's go ahead and talk about how we can alter these and move them around to sort of create new ones. We'll make a new layer here, and let's talk about cylinders first. Cylinders, you can taper or widen the end of either side of a cylinder in order to create different shapes. You can also squash or stretch the elliptical side in order to change the form. So for example, we can create more oblong shaped tapered cylinders doing something like this. You can create a cone if you taper one end all the way to one point. You can change the center line, right? We can make really squat, fat cylinders. Really just changing any of those dimensions are going to give you a completely new shape that you can use to create a form. Let's look at cubes. Cubes, you can increase the length of any one side to create a much longer box. You can create trapezoid type shapes. And if you take one of the sides and get rid of it completely, you can do pyramids as well. And then lastly, spheres, those ones are simple. Really just stretching or squashing any of those will give you more oblong spheroids, or just, a straight sphere. Let's look at some actual practical examples of this in real world objects and see if it actually holds true. Let's start with something super simple and easy. This truck, for example. We can see that the body of the truck is made up of just one long box. The top is made up of a trapezoid, the cab, and the wheels are made of cylinders. As you look at this, obviously there's more detail going on here than just these shapes, right? We have the headlights, we have the windows, we have the lug nuts and stuff in the tire, but this is our basis, right? We can start to draw on top of this and sort of like a sculptor working with a piece of marble, start to cut in and draw these different aspects and elements and make it more fleshed out. But if we start with this, we can really do anything. Let's look at something else, like maybe a little more complex, like this fire hydrant. Even this fire hydrant is made of a bunch of cylinders, right? We have all of these cylindrical shapes sort of inset stacked on top of each other, and we can see that the bolts on the end are really just a box with an extra side added to make a pentagon. Pretty straightforward, but what about something that's more organic, right? I mean, buildings, that's obvious, right? Cars, that's pretty simple. What about people or animals or things that are more organic? Same thing is going to hold true. We look here at this bowl, and even this we can see is broken down into these same basic shapes. For the head, we have a tapered box. For the horns, we have some cylinders with a cone on the end. For the neck, we have a big fat cylinder. The body is sort of this large stretched out sphere. The hips, the shoulder blades are boxes, and then all of our limbs are cylinders with spheres for joints. And even using this method, we can do animals. It might take some practice to get the hang of this, right? It's not always easily apparent when we look at an object what all of the shapes and forms are. It takes some time to get your brain to visualize things in this manner and really make it second nature. A great way to be able to do that is to start tracing over pictures. Find some pictures online. I love using Pinterest, and lower the opacity, create a new layer on top, and start to trace over what shapes you see. Let's look at a drawing really quick, something like this, where it's very detailed and very complex. Even this is going to be broken down into those basic shapes. If I turn down the opacity here and take a look at it, I'll draw over the top and we can see what it is I'm talking about here. So for example, we have these shapes here on the body. these are just going to be tapered cylinders, right? We have the head even, right? The head we can break down into a fairly straightforward box. Same with the mouth, right? The mouth can just be basically a cylinder that's open on one end. Shell, this turtle shell, is basically just half a sphere, right? Every single part of this image can be broken down into these basic shapes and then detailed from that point to create a more complex, more detailed structure. Now, the problem is with a lot of people is when they start drawing, they want to start with the details first, right? They just start coming into a painting like this and they start going in, you know, maybe they start working on the anemones or the fins or the tail, stuff like that. And as they're working, they're getting all excited, but then the proportions start to kind of feel weird. They feel sort of out of whack and things just aren't lining up the way they're supposed to. And it's because they're not focusing on the overall structure first and adding the details later. Once you start with the details, you get really attached to it, you get excited, and then when you have to go back and change stuff, it's a lot harder because you already did all this amazing work, you know, making the eye look really good or adding some fur around the nose, and now you have to mess that all up to get the proportions right. If we start loose, it's really easy to move things around and adjust things, and then once we have the underlying structure solidified, we can come back on top and add all of our awesome detail. I want to take a quick moment to tell you about my website, digitalpaintschool.com. So Digital Paint School is my new website where you'll be able to take digital painting courses covering a wide variety of topics. We're going to be teaching environment design, concept art, anime, manga, human anatomy, basically anything you can think of. There'll be multiple instructors on there who are experts in their industry who actually work in the field that they're teaching, and you can even sign up for one-on-one mentorships with any of our instructors where every week they're going to meet with you, they're going to be doing drawovers, paintings of your work, talking about your artistic goals, and even giving you specific assignments tailored exactly to what you're trying to accomplish. Also included is access to our private community of artists where you can meet other students who are taking the same courses as you, share your assignments, get feedback, actually interact with your instructors, as well as join fun art challenges and cool art prompts to come up with creative ideas. The whole goal of this website is to help you build a portfolio that's actually going to get you hired in the industry. And the cool thing is there's a 14-day money-back guarantee. So if you buy any of our courses and you just don't like them, you don't feel like it's worth it, you can get a refund for any reason, no questions asked, and you don't even have to worry about it. So if you want to paint images like I do in my videos, then click the link in the description below and go check it out. That's all. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Now back to the video. So let's go ahead and actually show you guys how to start drawing in Procreate, some of the tools, and how to get going. So first, your canvas is going to start with a basic layer. I'm working on a 15 by 11 inch canvas at 300 DPI. That's fairly large, but I like to keep mine big just in case I ever want to use it for, a print getting made or anything like that. That way it has fairly high resolution, but not so big that it becomes cumbersome to work with and I lose all of my layers. 300 DPI, 15 by 11 inches. That's all you need to know. Make that canvas. And for my brush, I'm going to use a nice pencil brush. I like the technical pencil in Procreate. It's already built in. It's under the sketching tab. If you click on it and go to taper, I have my max size turned all the way up to max. And that's under the pressure taper. And that's just because I like a little bit more variation in my brush to give it a little bit more thickness when I push hard. Lastly, we're going to come over here to this little color dot, and this is going to be where we pick what color. I'm just going to use black. And then on the right side, we have our size slider, and I like to put mine at 7 to 8%. And this little tab here, you might be wondering that if you are sliding this around, you see that plus sign right next to size. If you click on that, it'll create a new tab for you that will automatically lock to whenever you use that brush. So you can make sure you're using that same brush size whenever you draw. And this other slider is just opacity. We don't need to worry about that. So once you have that all set, you should be able to start drawing right away. I have my background color set to gray, but you can leave yours default white if you want. We're ready to start drawing. Let's say I want to draw this dragon here. A turkey dragon is what I had in mind. This here is a turkey dragon. We have it broken down into its basic shapes. I want to go through each one to sort of show you how we're going to turn these into a more finished drawing. I want this thing to feel really big and heavy set, this really fat, cumbersome dragon. So the best shape that I decided to go with for the main body was a sphere. This is because spheres are round. They really capture the sense of softness that I'm going for in some of these forms. And I didn't want to go with a box, right, because that's going to be really sort of blocky and sharp edges. And really in organic shapes, a lot of these bodily forms are going to be more round and soft. The only time you're going to see these sharper edges and cubes and stuff like that is when you have these bony protrusions. That's where that's going to really come forward. So went with a sphere for the body. The neck, we have a nice big fat cylinder that sort of comes off of the sphere and leads up to the head, which is also a sphere. We have this wedge shape for the throat and the neck here, and some more spheres to really just sort of flesh out the wattle and the neck area, and a nice little pyramid, wedge-like pyramid shape for the beak. Looking at the limbs, we can see the back legs here. I went with a sort of a wedge, because yeah, I'm going to put some fat on here, but also when I was trying to figure out what to break it down as, I thought, you know, there's going to be some bony shapes, some bony protrusions. Let's go ahead and make that more of a wedge. We have our joints as spheres because it just makes sense, right? When you're moving around your arms and your fingers and stuff like that, they're sort of on this swivel, and the sphere just is a really easy way to visualize that and help it make sense. And then, you know, for that shin part, we have a cylinder, and the metatarsals, or the, you know, this section of your hand or the foot for this guy is going to be a box with little cylinders for the toes. We have that on both sides. And then his arms are just cylinders with some ball joints. Same with the wings, cylinders, ball joints, little wing fingers coming out. And then for that back part, for the feathers, really it's just a flattened, basically cylinder cut in half. I'll draw it over here on the side too, to give you like another angle of it, but basically that would be sort of like a side view, top view, would look maybe something like this. And that's what the feathers are back there, okay? Now, build this up in layers, right? The first pass doesn't have to be super clean and pretty, right? You're just trying to get those shapes out there. So draw it in super rough. You're gonna get everything about where you want it. Once you have it, you can use the liquify tool and move stuff around, right? You can push things back into shape, or, you know, distort them, make them a little bit, you know, more accurate to what you're trying to go for. You can also use the selection tool to just entirely grab sections completely, and make sure you're on freehand. Don't want that. Use the selection tool to just grab sections completely, and, you know, completely move them around in the image. And because we're starting loose and rough, it's not a big deal. Super easy to do. Once you have that, build up another layer, create a new layer. You do that by tapping these two little squares up here and hitting this plus sign right across from the word layers at the top. It's gonna make you a new layer. You're gonna come in and start drawing on top. First, I always recommend lowering the opacity of your previous layer so it's easy to see what you're doing. You can do that by tapping on the layer you want to lower the opacity for with 2 fingers. It'll bring up this opacity slider, and you just use one finger to slide left and right across the screen to raise or lower the opacity. So we're bringing the opacity down pretty low to like 20-ish%. And then with the new layer we created, we can start drawing, right? And you can start refining those shapes, cleaning it up a little bit, getting a little bit tighter, instead of just working on one layer and using an eraser tool over and over again to get everything perfect. Basically at this point where you have all those forms, that's when you can start to draw on top of it, right? That's when you're gonna start to work your way in here with a little bit more of the details. Once again, we're not going crazy detailed right off the bat. We're starting fairly simple, and we're just gonna start putting in those major landmarks, you know, the eyes, the beak, thinking about the form, coming down here on the body. And you can notice that I'm not just following these lines, right? These are just the basic shapes. These are our basic forms. It's now up to me to sort of work these into an actual dynamic drawing, right? And you start adding a little bit more detail, a little bit more flow, especially for these organic shapes. Like I said, we keep it loose. We keep it really loose. You want to use reference, make sure that you're looking at something that you can refer to make sure you're getting, you know, different shapes, right? The perspective, textures, all of that, right? And slowly but surely, you know, things are going to start to come together. This coupled with, you know, some basic anatomy understanding, you know, making sure you have these basic forms down pat in your mind so that you're not trying to basically constantly be having to, you know, look up what these shapes are and stuff like that is going to help go a long way. And just like with any technique, it's going to take practice, okay? This isn't, you know, it is, you can draw anything doing this, but it's not going to just come to you in one sitting, right? You just spend a little bit of time working at it. You start coming in here with these details, right? Let's go ahead and look at the one that I already did. And we can see how we have all these sort of basic shapes represented in the original. As I went, I decided, you know, maybe I need to tighten some things up. Maybe I need to change some shapes to help capture what I'm looking for a little bit better. We still have all these ball joints for, you know, the knees and ankles and stuff like that. And most of the forms are still there, right? But we did expand on some things, right? We pushed back the neck waddle here. We worked maybe the arms and legs a little bit more to get them more the direction I wanted to go, but it all started out with these basic forms. And you can do the exact same thing on your own drawings. What I recommend is maybe going back to some of your older drawings where you feel like things are just wonky or they feel a little off, and see if you can break these down into their forms. Keep in mind, this is not the same thing as just a basic 2D shape, right? You're not drawing triangles or squares or circles, okay? Thinking about these things in 3D. We're drawing cylinders, cubes, spheres, okay? It's going to make a huge difference in making your drawing look dynamic and like it has depth. If you want it to look like an Egyptian drawing, then yeah, use circles, squares, and that's it, right? Triangles, yeah. Use those 3 things, and if you want to look flat, if you want to look 3-dimensional though, you need to think about these things in forms. That's pretty much it for this video. In future ones, we're gonna go over how to use this method to actually start painting things and get some lighting in there. And we'll also use the same method to go over how to draw things from different angles. So if you have a creature or a character or something, and you're trying to see what would this look like from different perspectives, different angles, maybe for like a comic book or something like that, you can use the same method to sort of move things around in your mind and draw them from different angles and perspectives. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for stopping by. If you have any other suggestions on what type of videos you'd like to see in the future, leave them in the comments below, and be sure to hit that bell icon so you can be notified when I post new videos. So once again, thanks for joining me, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.